So, couple of things I'd like to mention. So, welcome, I guess. Hey, welcome to our. We're trying to make a Thursday series of this. We had a fantastic. Just so you know, Emily, did I invite you to MmX at the University in Decatur in May?
Yes.
Okay. So we switched. I'm very proud of the fact that we switched from a physical experience in the Commons building to online. And with the help of our senior students who've now graduated, we tripled attendance from last year's physical conference. And we had attendees from 23 countries.
That's fantastic.
I mean, I think that had a lot to do with Lol Tolhurst doing from The Cure, doing a presentation, mobilizing his fans all over the world. But nonetheless, that was really good. So this is our weekly version of the MmX series. And today we're really fortunate to have Emily White with us. Do you have your introduction in your deck, Emily, or you want me to stumble through an introduction?
I can definitely do that. The one thing I'd ask is maybe if people could put in a chat, like, are you a freshman? Are you a senior? Are you an adult? Are you in high school? Because then I can tailor it a little bit. But we'll just dig in, if that's cool.
Yeah, let me just mention a couple more things if I can.
Oh, please, yeah.
We're going to have some of your, a link for Interning 101. I know that you also have a new book out, sustaining how to create a sustainable music career. But we'll also have links for Interning 101 today. So watch out for links that we'll throw in. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm now reading the chat. So
okay.
Dawn is saying hello from the chat. Oh, hey Dawn, okay. I'm still mastering this idea, this ADD idea.
No, I know.
Juggling all this stuff. So just for those of you, before Emily gets started, I found myself on so many occasions speaking to students about the importance of interning. We've been reworking the program at Millikan, the music industry program, to reflect the importance of internships. It used to require just one internship, and now I'm requiring 3. So everybody hates me, but they won't when they accidentally, oh crap, it turns out we have a career. Emily's Interning 101 is the textbook for that class. And I find myself continually referring to things that Emily has said, pieces of wisdom to pass along to students. So we're very lucky to have Emily with us today. I'm just going to hand this over to Emily, and then as I do, interrupt constantly. So there we go. Thanks for joining us, Emily.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen. No, that's not what I wanted. All right, new share. It's probably in here. Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. Hold on. There we go. Can you see the deck?
Yes.
I'll move it into presenter mode. Great. We should be good now. We should be good now. All right. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Emily White. I'm a founding partner at Collective Entertainment here in New York City. We work in music and sports. I'm obviously the author of Interning 101. As Martin kindly mentioned, I have a new book out called How to Build a Sustainable Music Career and Collect All Revenue Streams. I'll be presenting on that here in July. But first, I want to share some information on Well Done, and then I'll share some more about me and we'll get into it. So Well Done is an amazing nonprofit that I serve on the board of, and they fund entertainment industry internships for underserved students. So if you're looking for funding, which most college students are, please apply. It's in memory of an intern named Emily Dunn, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And this is a foundation that her family put together. It's tied in very closely with Superfly and the Bonnaroo founders, and there's some really, really amazing people involved. And we're developing mentoring and workshops and things like that. Also, believe it or not, I don't usually push book sales, but anyone who buys Interning 101 today, 50% of that will go to Well Done. So we're doing a little fundraiser here as well. And it would be awesome if anyone buys it on interning101.com, because frankly, the money comes in right away. I can get it to the organization. It's a lot. I mean, that's cool if you buy my new book on Amazon or whatever, but that takes like months, for things to move. So yeah, just please spread the word on Well Done, because we want to see more students of color, more women throughout the entertainment industry. So I'm going to briefly, as I can, share some information about my background. So I'm originally from Heartland, Wisconsin, where there's no music industry. So I went to Northeastern University in Boston, where they have an awesome co-op program. They've had it's interning basically. They've had that for a while. And I knew no one in the music industry when I started, and now I probably know too many people. But I got my first internship through my school. So, pay attention to the resources that are around you. It's just in my school's database. It was a company called Powderfinger Promotions. I'd never heard of it. If anyone works at the college radio station, you might have, because they do college radio promotion and PR. So again, it wasn't like my dream thing or dream company in advance. And got that internship. Before that, I was really nervous for the interview. And it turns out the woman interviewing me was only a few years older than me. She's also from the Midwest. She was from Chicago, so that kind of put me at ease. And, it's just crazy that it's not crazy, but it's crazy. It feels crazy that I was nervous, because Winifred is now one of my best friends. She lives down the street from me in Brooklyn. So within a few weeks, Win told me I was one of the best interns they'd ever had. And I was completely shocked by that, because all I did is what she asked me to do. So do what's asked of you. And that's already going to get you ahead. I also very excitedly said yes to everything, as a young person. Win came into the office one day and she said, "Hey, I just got press passes for this new thing called Bonnaroo. Do you want to come with me?" And so that was the first Bonnaroo in 2001 or whatever year that was. And we had a great time. Obviously, she was writing for a local music magazine, so I was assisting her with photos and interviews and things like that. So even at that young age, it was in particular because I didn't know what I wanted to do within music. I was ride or die music industry, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to intern the same place twice. Which was a difficult decision, because Win is so awesome. The founder of Powderfinger, David Avery, is so awesome. But I applied for a few more internships around Boston, where I was going to school. And that summer, I had the good problem of being accepted to 2 internships. So if you are in that situation and you are able to intern every day, I accepted an internship at, unfortunately it's not there anymore, but WBCN in Boston, which is a legendary rock radio station. So I was there 3 days a week. And then 2 days a week, I was at an indie label. And the radio station was great. There was a lot going on. They, for the most part, had stuff for me to do. What I mean by that is they liked me, but we weren't always super busy. But there's a lot that can be gleaned from observation and things like that, which we'll get into. But then, meanwhile, at the indie label, I guess this is more common now, but no one was listening to music in the office, which I thought was super weird. So it was a quiet music office. And it just didn't seem like I could do anything right. But at the same time, somehow, even at that young age, I realized that my boss wasn't the happiest person in the world. So it's just a huge reminder that if someone is short with you or seems frustrated or whatever, there's a 99% chance that has nothing to do with you. So the earlier you can learn to not take things like that in the workplace personally, the better. But at the same time, you might be in experiences like that where it's just what am I getting out of this? And for me, I was should I quit this indie label and go work at WBCN 5 days a week, where people do seem a little happier. But one day, a musician named Ed came into the indie label, and he asked me to help him with some press kits. He worked part-time at the label, and he was happy with my work. And he was playing the Paradise that weekend, which still is like my favorite venue in Boston. And he was playing with Letters to Cleo and Kay Hanley, who I love. And he said, would you like to do merch for us? And it was like a would I moment. I didn't even know how people got merch jobs then. So that was my first paid gig in music. Ed paid me $50, which felt like $1 million. And he became my first tour managing mentor, which I'll get into. But I'm so glad I didn't quit that internship, because you don't know the benefits that you're going to get often until later. So I really encourage you to stick it out. Unless something unethical is happening. If that's the case, tell me, tell Martin, tell your parents. You have a lot of great resources. But otherwise, like I said, it's like you might not realize what you're gaining until later. So I believe that winter I co-opted or interned at what's now Live Nation New England, because I was really obsessed with live music. And it was really corporate, which I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it wasn't for me. So that's another great thing about interning, is figuring out, in college, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. Maybe once you get into a place like that produced all the concerts in New England, and you realize it's not really what you imagined, then you can focus on something else. But at the same time, I got an awesome job out of that, doing the guest list and ripping tickets at my favorite clubs in Boston, where I got paid to see free shows and let a lot of my friends in. So that summer I interned at VH1 Classic in New York. I really wanted to go to New York City. We will talk about financial stuff in a bit, but part of it is just figuring it out, So I found dorms in New York City. I believe it's Mount Mary College for when things return. And they will only house interns for the summer. So I was in like a triple dorm, with 2 other young women who were interning. The whole building was interns, which was cool. And it was actually cheaper for me to live there than in the Back Bay of Boston, where my university was housed. Here in New York City, we have 2 slices of pizza for $2. We've got great bagels. So, you just figure it out. At the same time, VH1 Classic wasn't necessarily my dream internship. I wanted to be at like MTV2, where they were doing Radiohead shows. But again, that internship led to really my dream, which was to work in the music industry in the UK. So they helped me get an internship in the UK. Interns in the UK are paid. It's very, very entry level. My fellow interns had all graduated college, and I was still in school. But again, it's like, even if it's not like your dream thing, it can lead to something else. So before I went to England, I met a band called the Dresden Dolls, and I started interning for them. They played at my school. At Northeastern, we have a non-alcoholic club called After Hours that pays musicians pretty well. So we would get good bands, and the Dresden Dolls were a local band, but they were definitely on the rise. So, and I'd also seen them play at the Boston Music Awards, so I was already a fan. And I introduced myself to Amanda Palmer at the merch table. I was really nervous. And, but I introduced myself professionally. I said, I'm studying music business. I intern at WBCN and et cetera. Let me know if you ever need help with anything. And Amanda was like, can you come over tomorrow? And she told me, I'm sure a while later, that she'd received offers for help before, but they were from fans. And I was and am a fan, but I also presented myself in a professional manner, and that was attractive to her for sure. So it turns out Amanda lived in this amazing artist commune that was like a 10-minute walk from campus. So I would just go there after class. And, again, we'll talk about this, but, you want to research everything like crazy. In that case, the Dresden Dolls had a website in 2003, which was very forward thinking. It was a beautiful, very cool, like dollhouse website. Go to everything on the website, follow, people on Twitter that you're going to be interning for. But at the same time, when you show up, be a blank slate as far as the tasks you think you might be given. The first task Amanda had for me was taking dictation, because if you've ever seen her play, she has a really aggressive style of keyboard play. And then this sounds quaint to me now, but there wasn't really a team in place around the band. So Amanda was booking the band, responding to interview requests, fans, mailers. So she was sending, the part that sounds quaint is she was sending like 100 messages a day. So she had developed pretty bad tendonitis in her forearms. And the first thing she asked me was, could you take dictation? And, none of us are getting a degree to take dictation, but I did it well. I did it with joy. So again, you could look at that task and be like, oh, this sucks. Or it turns out there's no better way to get inside your boss's head than taking dictation, or a band's head or a business's head, and a band is a business. So then I went to England. That was a difficult decision because the Dresden Dolls were actually going on their first tour bus tour. I should back up. I was doing merch and tour management for the Dresden Dolls. So yeah, they were going on their first tour with a bus, but Amanda and Brian Biglione from the band were so supportive. They're like, this is your dream, go do your internship in England, and we're here when you come back. And that, I should pause there for a moment, because that, I already told you my dream was to work in the UK music industry. My plan was to camp outside Marcus Russell's office, who's managed Oasis forever, until he'd let me help with something. But that ended up not being my path. And that's totally okay. I'm just as happy and successful and all that. So it's good to have goals, but it's not always going to go the way that you think. So I came back to the US, and we were at Morning Becomes Eclectic in LA. By then, the band did have management. It was this phenomenal person named Mike Luba, who's a founder at Madison House. And I was in the control room with Luba probably the spring before I graduated. And he said, when you graduate, you'll come work for me at Madison House. And that's how I got my first job out of college. I didn't apply for anything. Nobody posted anything. I really made myself indispensable to the Dresden Dolls, where I would never say I'm the third member of that band, but certainly functioning with me was a lot easier than functioning without me. So much so that when the Dresden Dolls signed their management agreement with Madison House, they paid a higher commission if I was employed by Madison House. My name was literally in the management agreement. So that's applicable to all of your internships. If you can integrate yourself into the company's culture, which we'll talk about, that's what people are looking for. So that's what you want. You want to make yourself indispensable. I graduated, but I didn't walk because we were at Coachella starting a 3-continent tour with 9 Inch Nails. I so that kind of brings me up to, graduating. Tour managed from age 20 to 23, went all over the world, was doing day-to-day management for the Dresden Dolls. When I wasn't on the road, I would work in the office at Madison House. By the time tour management wasn't challenging anymore, and I knew venues and hotels better than my neighborhood in Brooklyn, it was perfect timing because Madison House, the other partner, Kevin Morris, needed help with some artists. So it was just the perfect timing for me to come off the road. So I did that, got my management chops at Madison House. I'm forever grateful for that. It's a really forward-thinking company. Mike Luba was leaving Madison House to go work at Live Nation Artists, which was a $500 million division of Live Nation in 2007 or so, where the first signees were Madonna, U2, Jay-Z, and Zac Brown. I had written a Name Your Own Price business plan for Amanda's first solo album. And that was right before Radiohead did In Rainbows, and then they did In Rainbows, and that kind of validated what I was working on. And Luba passed along my business plan, or my idea, to Bob Ezrin, who produced Pink Floyd's The Wall, amongst many other things, who was heading up the recording division for Live Nation Artists. And so I moved to Miami because that's where they were setting up. So they offered me a job. I was 24 years old. Going into it, I was like, this is either going to be the biggest thing ever or a big disaster. But not for me. Like this $500 million thing. But if it's a big disaster, I knew it would be a great learning experience. So I kind of viewed it like grad school. And that's what it was. They handed me Zac Brown band. I knew nothing about country. Zac's ticket counts were like 40 in Nashville at the time. He obviously plays stadiums and is one best new artist now. Long story short, we were all laid off 7 months later. Luba and Ezrin sat me down and they're like, you know all sides of this business. It's time for you to start a company. If you need anything, we're here. If you want to stick with us, you can, but we're blocked by a huge non-compete and can't do music for a while. So there's artists calling you that want you to manage them. You should move back to Brooklyn. So that's what I did. I quickly partnered with a comedy manager who was strictly a colleague, not a friend, which I say more like, because I have a lot of friends in the industry, so it's weird to partner with someone you don't really know. But that was great because I learned a ton about comedy. We managed Margaret Cho, W. Kamau Bell. Whitesmith Entertainment was around for a decade until Carrie Smith left management. So it wasn't personal or financial or anything like that. I also started managing athletes in 2012. I was on a swimming scholarship and my parents are swimming coaches. So I managed the rock star of Olympic swimming, Anthony Irvin. He had 16 years in between gold medals and he's a musician as well. So his story is pretty wild. And then I brought on a few other swimming clients. So when Carrie decided to leave management, I partnered with a few proteges, actually 2 former interns from a long, long time ago, and we launched Collective Entertainment. So that brings me up to date, but I did want to give some background on the internships I did and how I navigated that. So let's dig in. First, how to get an internship. Really dream big here, like I probably could have gotten an internship, don't camp outside someone's office, but for Marcus Russell if I really, really tried, right? But at the same time, you want to cast a wide net. So go after your dream internships for sure. But, apply to, 5, 6, if you don't get any responses, apply to 10, 12, really cast that wide net because, you heard a variety of experiences that I had that I didn't really understand the point while I was going through it, but then it greatly benefited my career later. Like I mentioned, definitely apply if there isn't an internship posted. Even at Live Nation Artists, which I just referenced, and that was just like a think tank of amazing brains. Like I was in awe of all the people I was working for and working with. I started an internship program there because I needed help. So my point is, like, if there's something you're interested in, companies might be too busy or might not have thought of having an intern or posting it. So reach out. You might create your own internship. Send short and relevant emails Monday through Wednesday. So what I'm talking about there is, I don't have time to read your life story. I don't have time to read anybody's life story in an email. Okay. So at any age, if you're trying to get a response, keep it short and to the point. I have an example email, on what to send when applying to internships. I mean, we're talking like 3 sentences here. Like, hi, I'm a junior at X school, I'm a music business major, and then flip it around, right? Like, I've actually pretty much never had to ask for interns in my life because you all come to me. So it's appealing to us if we get an email like, I guess I could reference books now, but I used to say like, hey, someone emails us and says, Emily, I really loved this op-ed or this article that you wrote for Hypebot, and I really like how you work with independent talent and develop artists. That shows that they have an interest in what we're doing instead of, dear sir, here's my life story. That just shows like you're just, blanketing everybody. Also, don't send internship applications on Saturday nights, on Christmas. You all love to email us between Christmas and New Year's, which I totally get because you're on break. That is, even though that is a religious time for some people, that's like the non-religious, like holy break in the entertainment industry. The only time we are off email is between Christmas and New Year's. So if you're applying then, you're like, we're just coming back to 1 million emails in January and your email's going to get lost. So think about the receiving end so you have the best shot of your email getting read. So keep those emails on non-holiday Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. I feel like there's something else I was going to say about that, but your resume should be a PDF. I know it sounds ridiculous, but Microsoft Word documents require a few more clicks. I'm in my 30s and have carpal tunnel, so I don't need extra clicks. You don't really need a cover letter in the music industry as far as I'm concerned. Save that information for your interview, because again, we just want the email to get read, get the interview, get your foot in the door. But if you're applying for a music law firm or maybe a music business firm, it might be a little bit different. So, just take that into consideration. But, if you're applying to a management company or something, like, we don't have time to read, a super long cover letter. Again, save all that information so you have something to say in the interview. And then mindfully follow up. Actually, mindfully follow up is a better phrase for like when you're an intern or in the industry. What I don't see from artists is that from interns and students is that you don't follow up. So just first follow up, but be smart and strategic how you do it. So, I know what I was going to say about if you can't send an email on Monday through Wednesday, there are great free programs like Boomerang for Gmail where you can schedule emails to be sent at a certain time. So if Saturday night works for you, that's great. You can compose the email then, but then it's going to arrive in someone's inbox, on Monday or Tuesday. And even be smart about that. Like, don't have it arrive at 9 a.m. on a Monday. People are still like getting their caffeine and shuffling through. Do like a 11 a.m. local time, 1 p.m. Because again, go ahead, Martin.
And how long would you wait before a follow-up?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I would say, under the pandemic, I would say a week. I think that's fine. I would maybe follow up like a week later, just reply to that same email and be like, hey, I just wanted to check in and make sure this is received. I would have no problem if you did that the following week. If you still don't hear back, maybe try calling the next week, although I know that's a little weirder now, but while people are working from home and stuff, but I would still encourage you to do it. Also, there are free email trackers. So I pay for one, but for example, in mine, there's a little thunderbolt next to it, and that thunderbolt lights up if someone has clicked on your email. And if they've clicked on it 5 times or 18 times or whatever, it says that. So that's really good information for all of us, because if that lightning, and there's also anti-email tracking software, so it's, it'll all evolve. But if that thunderbolt hasn't lit up, maybe your email went into spam, so that would be a good time to call the next week. So, that's helpful to look into as well.
Did I tell you my donor resume strategy?
No.
I told this to my son, Ian. He was the first social media intern over at Fort Knox in Chicago. And actually one of my students at Columbia 16 years ago did this. He put his resume inside a box of donuts, or taped it to a box of donuts. And even though people were like, screw this guy, they kind of congregated around a box of donuts. And then at 2 donuts in for each of them, they kind of felt guilty and read his jam-stained, sugar-coated resume, and he got the job. So I like stuff like that. That's a little bit, one of my students at Columbia did that with pizza. Mm-hmm. And their resume was covered in grease. It just didn't matter. Like, great, you got the job.
I love it. And again, like, make that your own, right? So it's like, it seemed like I bet those, your son and that student liked pizza and liked donuts or whatever. Like, I don't know, just make it your own is what I'm trying to say. And I love that strategy for sure. Okay, interning and money. We kind of reference this, but, at your internships, assuming it's not paid, well, first, Martin's already doing this, for the students that are here, like, factor in an unpaid internship as part of how you are paying for college. So however you're paying for college, I'm sure it's a combination of loans, cash, scholarship, budget that in. Because it's so crucial. There's so many things, even in a remote internship, that you're going to learn that is very difficult to teach in the classroom. So if your internship is unpaid, just maintain that college student's mindset, on expenses, like I talked about. 2 slices of pizza for $2, bagels, make your own tea, coffee. Right now, you do have an advantage because the cost of living, I mean, you don't have to go to New York to intern in New York. And I'm not saying like you have to be in New York or LA or Nashville. I mean, look at what Martin's doing. I love like the Bon Iver empire up in northern Wisconsin and Minneapolis. I think I have a UPS package, but I'll let it go. So right now you don't necessarily have to be, in those places. So expenses are down right now. And at the same time, I encourage you to balance experiential work and paid work. Don't be ashamed by that at all. If anything, it's going to show me as an employer that you have really good time management skills and know how to balance, and probably have picked up some skills in your paid work that can really, benefit in your internships and your entertainment career as well. So
Mark,
yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Mark Cuban said on, what's that? Oh, crap. What's that show? I want to say Dragon's Den because that's the English one. The show where you pitch people stuff. What is that?
Shark Tank.
God, Shark Tank. That any kind of, he looks for people who've been in a customer service position, because that's everything. If you have customer service experience. So yeah, as you said, don't be ashamed of that. Definitely.
Yeah, and just to expand on that point, my now business partner, Melissa Garcia, when she was an intern for us a million years ago, there was something crazy going on with one of our bands. Like, I was so stressed out. I don't have meltdowns anymore, but possibly having a meltdown as a young manager. And I look at Melissa, who's totally calm, and I'm like, she knew I wasn't mad at her, but I'm like, what's your deal? You're totally calm. And she's like, oh, I used to work in a restaurant, so I'm used to high stress situations. And now I look at that on resumes, as opposed to, I had an intern once with like an amazing resume. It was like C3, South by Southwest, Austin City Limits. And I thought, oh, this kid's going to be great. He was awful. And it showed me that he really just stared at a wall at those internships and didn't learn anything. So I will take the restaurant worker in a second over, a bunch of internships where you didn't do anything. Mindfully meet with your supervisor about goals. So what I'm talking about there is, this actually happened to me on Monday. 11 a.m. on a Monday is not a good time to ask me for career advice. At our company, we actually do monthly calls, and at the end of it, there's an open floor to kind of AMA, ask the partners anything. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with scheduling a Zoom, scheduling a call, but yeah, it's, just ask for that on like a Thursday afternoon or a Friday, not when we're trying to get a bunch of pitches and a bunch of work out the door. Come on, deck. There we go. All right, so internship and career prep, because I know we have some upper class people here as well, and as well as someone who just graduated. So practice your interviews. That was advice, my attorney actually gave me before the first big panel I was ever on. She was like, prepare. And I really just got together with a friend, and he asked me questions that he thought might be on the panel. It was a really major panel I was on. My friend was like, it was a guy friend. He was like, do you know who you're on with? And I was like, no, I was very young. He's like, you're screwed. These are powerhouses. So I don't remember anything I said on that panel, but all of those people, Tim Westergren, who founded Pandora, Tom Silverman, Ted Cohen, Steve Greenberg, I'm missing another biggie from that panel. We're all tweeting like, if I were in a band now, I would want Emily to be my manager. And I was asked to speak on like 10 more panels in my first meet-em and everything just based on that, because I prepared. So it's the same, and I didn't even really prepare, I just practiced, right? So we're not always the best, especially digital natives, which is not a diss. We grew up, you grew up staring at screens, now we all literally stare at screens. So practice. I just led a workshop at Appalachian State University. One of the students is married, and I said, practice with your partner, practice with a friend, practice with a parent, just have them ask you, questions, do it on the phone too. I have a chapter in the book called Don't Fear the Phone, because I did used to fear the phone. So start practicing with friends so you get comfortable. I don't mind at all that Martin has been jumping in. That is awesome. But if you are being interviewed, especially if you are a young man, especially if you're being interviewed by a woman, please don't interrupt. I know this comes out of nerves, but just listen, answer the questions. And again, that you're gonna become more comfortable and at ease the more you practice with your friends and support groups. Questions to ask. I think it's always great to ask how someone got their start in the company, because that's good information for you to know. And people like talking about themselves, so it's an ego stroke for the person interviewing you. And hopefully will leave, a more positive, they'll remember you positively. Company reconnaissance, I talked about this, go to every page on the website, follow key people on social media. My reference here is a little dated, but it's like, don't intern for the New York Yankees and not know who Derek Jeter is. Same with field reconnaissance, right? Like, you know, start reading trade publications and start following people you're interested in on Twitter. Not to be like in the olden days, but it's like, I didn't have that when I was coming up, right? Like, and it's called social networking for a reason. So take advantage of all those resources that are out there. Please take care of yourself. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but, you know, get enough sleep, hydrate, try to eat healthy, especially during pandemic times, move your body. I am obsessed with exercise because it fuels my brain, okay? And it's just going to help you with nerves and be more confident when you are applying and doing interviews. Like I said, after you've done your reconnaissance and you've gone to every page on the website and you've checked everybody out on LinkedIn and Twitter and everything, clear your mind of expectations because you're going to be let down. You know, we have a lot of interns come in, they think they're going to be the marketing lead on a project, and they're not. They're starting with database entry to show us that they can follow instructions because we lay out very clearly, you know, everybody has to read Interning 101 before they start interning for me. So we start everyone on a level 0 task because each task plugs into the next one. So for example, you know, we require everybody to copy and paste. I mean, everybody should do this anyway. Copy and paste email addresses, data, stuff like that. If I didn't do that, I would, you know, have typos all the time. So we make that very clear. And you could look at a task like database entry and be like, this sucks. Or you could do it well and then also research who that person is that I'm asking you to hang on to their info because they're obviously like important enough that I want you to file it. And then when I go to copy and paste that email address out of the database and I get a bounce back a few hours later, it shows me that the intern was sloppy. So why would I trust you, you know, with anything higher up? Yeah, so you don't know the tasks you're going to be given. So just clear your mind of that after you do your research on the company and clients and people. And just do the tasks well, do it with joy, do it to the best of your ability. Try to figure it out before you ask. You know, when I was at Madison House, I wasn't an intern, but I was 22, 23. It just wasn't the culture where I could ask my bosses things every 2 seconds, right? So I got really good at problem solving, even if it's like fixing the printer by Googling it or whatever. So try to figure it out because you're going to develop problem solving skills. And then if you're still stuck, you know, pick a quiet moment to ask your supervisor to help guide you. And again, when I'm saying what happens when a ladder is missing rungs, everything plugs into the bigger picture, like with the database example, right? It's like, you might just be like, oh, whatever, database. But like, if I get a bounce back on like a Monday or Tuesday, and then I have tons of calls and meetings, like I'm probably not going to get that pitch out on behalf of one of our artists until the top of the next week. So you're actually slowing down that artist's career and slowing down progress, which is kind of the opposite of making yourself indispensable. The legalities of internships, I have all that listed in the book. There's a variety of points from the US Supreme Court. The one that I really try to keep in mind is that you are not replacing an employee. So if you show up, and this is in particular for unpaid internships, if you show up and have skills, you will be paid. If you show up and we give you tasks and you have no idea what we're talking about and you don't understand the industry at all, that's why it's an internship, because we're taking time out of our 24/7 days to help you grow and learn. So I do feel that it's mutually beneficial. The network effect, a lot of interns think that, if I intern the same place over and over and over, I'll get hired. Well, when you graduate, if there isn't a job opening, you're kind of limiting your options there. So most jobs come out of the network that you start to build as an intern. I know I'm a little unique because I have this book and everything, but people know interning for me. I mean, colleagues know that interning for me is very hardcore. So when they have a job opening, they often call me and are like, okay, who you got? Who's good? It's like, they're not posting that on Monster or LinkedIn or whatever, you know, they're asking around. Okay, modern office basics. We talked about this, keep it short. Read everything from the bottom up. You can learn so many industry terms, names. That's more when you're at your internship. Respond to everything. That's really, really important. Hold on, let me move one thing. Yeah. Okay, so if you're at an internship, I mean, I think most modern companies are in Slack at this point, which is primarily a messaging platform. It does other things, but some companies are still in email world, and that's fine. It's actually not fine, but they'll get there. But my point is, like, if your supervisor asks you to do something and you do it, uh, don't send them a text 3 hours later, being like, hey, did you get this or whatever. Just I get so many text messages. I only answer from my computer at this point and pretty much only answer in the morning. So my point is, start to think about communication platforms and how you use them and what's appropriate. It's not just like, I did it. It's like, we saw it. We will come back to you with your question or whatever you need, as soon as we can. Play around with programs like Asana, Trello, Monday.com. That can be good for project management. These are some tools you might see in the workforce that you haven't experienced in college yet. We talked about not fearing the phone. I will say your generation will be excellent at video conferencing. So if you get intimidated by the phone, just know that you do have an advantage on Zoom and video conferencing. And again, I know all of you have used Google Drive, but think about how you are using it. So if I ask you to research someone's email address, I don't need a Google Doc that just has that person's email address on it, right? Like, just send it to me in Slack. Like, think about how we are using these tools so we can be as efficient and effective as possible. I'm sure many of you are using Dropbox. If you're not, start playing around with it for asset management. Same with SoundCloud. I have industry thoughts on SoundCloud that are different, but we do use it primarily for unreleased tracks, which can be really handy. And social media, you are told your whole lives what not to do on social media. Here's what to do. Be positive, put yourself out there. When I started my Twitter account in 2008, I started it kind of sarcastically, like, maybe someone will care about this young woman starting a company. And somehow I had this rule of, like, I'm only going to post positive things on the internet. And that hasn't steered me wrong. The under 5 times I've complained about something in the internet, it's come to bite me in the ass. So put yourself out there. That was my mentality. Billboard named me a must executive to follow multiple years in a row after that. And a good example is I had an assistant whose dream job came up somewhere else. And how often do our dream jobs come up? So I recommended her for it because I can get another assistant. And I realized I hadn't seen her resume in a while. And she had her social media links front and center because she was applying for, something in live music, basically. And she's like, I want to show that I'm passionate about live music. I go to a lot of concerts. I'm involved in the Nashville music scene. And that really impressed the person she was applying to as well. So instead of, thinking about all the stuff you shouldn't do on social media, flip it around and put yourself out there in a positive manner. Oh, keep going. Great. We talked about this, but really the Cliff's Notes version of Interning 101 is to make yourself indispensable. On one hand, I want you to be yourself, but on the other, look, listen, observe, read all those messages in Slack, read all those emails so you can start to understand the company culture a little bit. So for example, you always want to ask before doing, which we'll talk about, but like, our Dropbox right now is a disaster. If I had an intern say, like, hey, I noticed that's pretty unorganized, could I clean that up? Like, that's really helpful, actually, but you might have to notice that our Dropbox is a disaster, to suggest that instead of coming and being like, okay, I got a bunch of marketing ideas for the artist. It's like, okay, we don't need that. Like, we've thought about that already. So just, look, listen, observe. Like I said, do what is asked of you to the best of your ability, do it with joy. I was talking to a young woman who wanted to be a tour manager, and she said, yeah, I guess I'll just suck it up and do merch for a while. And I was like, suck it up. I love doing merch, like, you're the face of the band. You're answering the questions. Like, I got really into my merch table. So that's what I mean about the ladder rungs. Like, and as a tour manager, I need to know how merch works, right? I need to be able to work with my merch person. Actually, when we were touring with 9 Inch Nails, one of the lighting designers, I was having lunch with him, he said, do you know why their production manager was very scary, but he's like, do you know why he's so good at his job? I said, no. And he said, because he's done all our jobs before, which I now very, very much understand. And again, like I said, each task that you do plugs into the bigger picture. So think about it. If you can't figure out how that's the case, wait until that quiet moment on a Thursday or Friday, and ask your supervisor. Be like, how does this plug into the bigger picture? So making yourself indispensable, like I said, each task plugs into the next, so master it. Push past your nerves and ethical comfort zone. So all I'm saying there is like, I was nervous in a lot of situations, even like I was nervous at venues, like I'm a jock. I grew up at swimming pools, but I pushed past those nerves to the point where I love venues now. But obviously if something is making you uncomfortable and it's unethical, don't push past that. So that's what I mean by ethical comfort zone. I mentioned trying to figure it out before asking, observing, that's all pretty straightforward. Okay, how to get a job. I know we have at least one senior here. Normally I would be like, go for your dreams. I still want you to do that. But obviously with the economy and everything that's happening, expand your horizons and keep an open mind. So I taught a class at NYU in the fall. I had a great student who's passionate about music and brands. He just graduated, and I pointed him to Gray Horse's email list, which is a PR firm that doesn't really have anything to do with music, but they always list media jobs at the end. And I thought this student would be really great for those media jobs. It's not necessarily his dream, but it's a good parallel industry for him to get a start in, because right now any work is good work, in my opinion. Highlight your unique strengths. I've seen athletes from top 10 programs like the University of Southern California. I've seen Olympians, maybe not that bad, but I've seen people not put that they were on the swim team at University of Southern California. And most people know USC is nasty at sports, and they're really good at swimming. But, like I just interviewed a young woman. She's so passionate about the music industry. And at the end, she says, oh, I swam at UConn. That's so cool. You work in Olympic swimming. I'm like, why isn't that on your resume? Like, I would have remembered you. That would have stood out. A better example is, Mark Cates, who worked with Nirvana, Hole, Sonic Youth. He manages MGMT. His company is called Fenway Recordings, So don't bring up the Red Sox if you don't know what you're talking about. But if you do, he's probably going to be more interested in talking to you about that than music stuff. Yes, Martin.
Sorry, you mentioned Mark Cates.
Yes.
So above me, you see HITS,
Yep.
Which is stolen from a Washington Mutual bank. I met Mark in 1980, and I sent him the WGNT. It cost a fortune to UPS, half of a sign to him. So of course he turned the W upside down. Now he has MGMT in his office.
Amazing. I love it. Very cool. I've noticed, another NYU student of mine was applying for jobs. I took a look at his resume. I noticed he speaks Spanish. And I said, every company you're applying to has a Latin division, so start applying there. And it just hadn't occurred to him. It's like, oh, I'm from Spain, I speak Spanish, right? But that's actually a really, really great trait. So make sure, it's not just like I interned wherever. Like I said, it's like put your full self forth on the resumes. A2IM's email list has job postings. CMU's email list has job postings. They're mostly international. There's a lot of great music industry forums out there. So yeah, these resources are out there and people are hiring, believe it or not. Or do it yourself. Solve a problem and or make something better. My favorite webcasting platform right now is called Noon Chorus. I think they support artists in a really great way. It's two brothers that love live music and wanted to create a platform during the pandemic to support artists. It reminds me a lot of when I met Ethan Diamond in 2008, who founded Bandcamp. Same thing. He's like, I just want to support artists. I want to support my musician friends, so I made this thing. Well, 12 years later, Bandcamp has paid out over $500 million in royalties, primarily to artists. So I think Noon Chorus could be that. They have no funding. They're just making it. I know not everybody can code, but I knew I forgot something important at the beginning as far as my bio goes. Sorry. I'm also the founder. This is my life right now. This is why I don't sleep. At #IVoted. And so sorry to segue for a second, but this is relevant to this. So at I Voted, we activate venues to let fans in on election night who show a selfie from outside of their polling place. We did that in 150 venues in 37 states in 2018. It was very successful, lots of national acts, press, blah, blah, blah. That was myself and an intern, one. That thing just caught fire. And two, now we're offering artists the option of performing via webcast, and fans can RSVP with their selfie from home and their mail-in ballot or from outside their polling place. There's a few other options if you're under 18, international, blah, blah, blah. I just pivoted to what made sense. And we've built this awesome team, and it's kind of growing faster than we have funding, but we'll catch up. We're going to announce our first round of artists hopefully next week. We have over 50 confirmed. We have 90 more interested. And that's just from our first data sets of the top streaming artists in Wisconsin and Michigan, which are obviously key swing states, because we're booking talent based on what people are listening to in swing states, not what we think people are listening to. So that's what I mean by doing it yourself, solve a problem and or make something better. Okay, what not to do, I mentioned this. A lot of times students are told by universities to be proactive. Please just ask before doing. I have an example in the book where I'm dating myself, but an intern saw wanted to update one of our artist bios on Spotify. So they emailed an executive at Spotify from our database. No, All Music Guide at the time would update the bios. I don't need an email going to Katie because I want Katie to read my emails when I'm actually pitching her something relevant. There's a much more extreme example in the book about an intern firing a cleaning person at a top music publishing company. As an intern, it is not your job to hire or fire anyone. So no matter if you think it's the greatest idea ever, please just ask before doing. If you follow my rule that I mentioned earlier about being positive on the internet, then you don't have to worry about this. But obviously, don't complain about your boss or the company on the internet. It's amazing. Like I said, be mindful of not interrupting in the workplace as well. Just listen and answer, especially if you identify as a young male. And then I mentioned this, but don't follow up with me on the same day on a task or something that you completed. It's like, I got it. I got the email address that you put in a Google Doc that I asked you to research. What to do, start building beneficial habits now. I sleep 9 hours a night normally. I'm trying to. That has changed my life. That is my secret weapon. That fuels everything I do. I talked about hydrating, moving. Meditation is my secret weapon. I meditate for 5 minutes in the morning. I meditated for 5 minutes before this. I meditate 5 minutes before a big call, a big email, something to just get focused. There's tons of apps that do that, but you don't even need an app. Close your eyes, focus on your breath for a minute. Once you've mastered that, do 2 minutes the next day, build up to 5. Really, really, really life-changing, honestly. Networking in a pandemic, we're doing it right now. There's a lot of good conferences, resources, forums. One of the first ones I did was a student-run conference. One of the first ones I did under the pandemic was a student-run conference at Hofstra. And there were students from Connecticut and USC who were getting one-on-one mentoring sessions. And I was like, how'd you even find out about this? They're like, I don't know, we just did and we're here, So there's a lot of good stuff you can be doing and you're doing it today. We talked about positive social media posts and then finishing strong. Every great intern I've ever had has kind of fallen apart at the end because I totally get that you're excited about graduation or the next internship or whatever's happening. But that's a way to stand out, right? So just don't have senioritis the last 2 weeks, right? Don't put in 3 months of great interning and then the last 2 weeks, not get back to your boss. And then if we do contact you a few months later looking for a file or something, respond, which is also a great way to stay in touch about jobs and networking and things like that. So we have a few minutes for Q&A, and I will unshare my screen so I can see some beautiful faces. And I'm happy to answer anything that you have. And I know, why don't we start? There's some chat stuff, it looks like. So I'll start with the chat questions. What are suggestions for students of color who are dealing with the barriers of entry more than their white counterparts? Let's see if this is part of the same question. Do you have suggestions for employers in making their spaces safe and accessible to these students as well? Thank you for that question. I think that there's a lot of great organizing going on right now. And I do feel that companies are starting to listen in general. And I think we're starting to find out pretty quickly who's just posting a black square and who's trying to do something about it. So I think the more that we all can organize, you know, allies included, the better. So just get together, you know, and this is the case for everyone, but you know, your classmates and your fellow interns are sometimes your best resources, right? Like you're building your network from day one. So, but as far as barriers of entry go, just keep trying, you know, like our company is majority female and definitely has a variety of people of color. Like companies are out there that, you know, are going to judge you on your merits. And I do think that companies are getting more proactive on realizing, oh, maybe a bunch of like straight white dudes is not what we need, right? So just keep trying. There's a lot of people supporting you. There's a lot of people that want to make change. And suggestions for employers in making their spaces safe and accessible to these students. How about some conversations, right? I mean, these are conversations that are happening on our weekly calls. They are happening with my clients. You know, like trying to be an artist and figure. We have an artist named Julia Nunes who'd been releasing a song on the 1st of every month. Well, she wasn't comfortable releasing a song, you know, last week. We were supposed to do this workshop last week. So yeah, I think just being open, having conversations, figuring out actionable and tangible ways to help, and just always doing something, right? Like I said, 50% of Interning 101 sales today will go to Well Done. Yesterday I was on a podcast at my university for their athletic department. I made sure to share the excellent nonprofit Black Kids Swim that's very focused on drowning prevention and getting more kids of color into the sport. So for me as a white person, I'm just trying to share any platform that I have and listen and help in any way that I can. So I hope that's helpful. What would my advice be to someone who wants to begin a career in entertainment management? 2 things. 1, if you can start interning for a manager, great. And 2, start managing someone anyway. Because, you know, there's so many artists around that want help. I mean, you want to make sure you're on a professional path, which you obviously are. But thank God, or thank goodness, the Dresden Dolls said yes to me as a college student, right? So start with the people around you and see if you can, you know, help out a more established manager so you can learn the ropes as well. If someone doesn't know of smaller entertainment management businesses, are there resources to find those companies? Google. Just start Googling, start looking at music industry forums, start poking around, start going down some rabbit holes. Think about what you're into. Think about artists that you're into. You know, some artists are with huge companies, some are with smaller ones. So just start poking around. That's out there. I think that's all the chat stuff. If anybody, oh wait, that's like a different, oh, there's a Q&A thing and a chat. Okay, got it. Cool. I don't think there's any other questions in chat. So
there was something I liked from.
Oh, there's one more in the Q&A.
Okay, great.
Oh, it's another one. Okay, it's another one in the Q&A.
No, thank you, Molly. Oh, I see it. What would I say is the most crucial areas of the industry to understand if someone is trying to become an artist? That's why I wrote my second book. I feel that this information is out there, but I've never seen it put in order. So I mean, it has a long title for a reason. You need to be, there's 3 things you need to do. You need to be collecting email addresses of your fans. You need to be collecting phone numbers of your fans, and you need to be paying attention to where your fans are. Like, the people that do this are successful and make money for the long term. The people that don't, that are just like, I got this many Spotify streams and SoundCloud streams and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I address all of that in the book. But yeah, I'm honestly not, like, that book is like the first time I really felt like an artist, where I just had this an inherent need to get that information out. And also I was sick of taking on national acts and finding money for them. On one hand, that's, you know, definitely part of a manager's job. On the other, if that's happening to people we've heard of, what about everybody else? So yeah, that's why I wrote that book, because there's a lot of noise out there. And like I said, the information in my book is out there. I've just never seen it put in methodical order, which I think is a really confusing way to get educated. especially considering the music industry was set up like in the 1950s to confuse artists. So why would we teach, someone, a kid, multiplication and division before we teach addition and subtraction? That would be incredibly difficult for both the student and educator.
I just wanted to jump in what you said about finishing strong. Mm-hmm. I interviewed Kevin Lyman ages ago for a thing, and it was hilarious because there's a bunch of students from Columbia, and everything that Kevin was saying was just appalling them. And he said, when you get towards the end of your internship, save up some money. And they were like, well, we're already not getting paid. It's like, yeah, save up some money and then offer to take the one or the two main people you've been interning for out to lunch. And people were just losing their mind. He said it's a great way to just mark the end of get some input. What do you think? Perhaps maybe give some input that you've seen. But that's one of the biggest problems I've seen is the attitude towards internships. This isn't exactly what I want to do. Therefore, I will begrudgingly do this. One of the first things we would do 10, 15 years ago, 3 people would want to come and mess around with Steve Albini's tape machines and studio. And I would say, okay, well, here's a pile of CDs, strip off the shrink wrap, re-shrink wrap them, and then use this hairdryer. And people would just freak out. So 3 people would arrive and only 1 person would show up day 2. That's fine. Now I only need to deal with that 1 person who can tolerate 3 or 4 days of bullshit they'll. So, yeah.
Well, I think to that point, I've heard from students a lot over the past 10 years or so, like, how do I get a mentor? I think, again, sometimes that is like the problem with expectations. Like okay, I got my internship, I'm going to get mentored. This person's going to be here for me. My mentor, which I would say in front of him in a second. First, he would probably bristle at the word mentor because he's a total frat boy. And I actually don't mean that in a negative way, right? So sometimes your mentors come in forms that you don't, that you can't picture. And again, it's like, if you were expecting a mentorship out of your supervisor, maybe they're getting divorced, maybe they had a death in the family, like maybe they hate their job, like you have no idea what's going on there. So don't be bummed if it's not what you anticipate. And that's what I mean about clearing your mind of expectations after you do the research on the company and the people there.
Yeah. And to me, a merch booth position, that's gold dust, because you're there, you've got a job to do, which has a beginning and allegedly an end, but you can see all the crap. It's like you could, while you're doing this thing that you're lucky to be asked to do, you can learn you can see everything that's going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of my, I don't think anybody got this, actually. I suggested it to a couple of students. In between Fort Knox, which is 200, 300 rehearsal rooms and recording studios, and a music business creative media incubator opened by the mayor of Chicago, there's a coffee shop. I'm like, oh my God, that's it. Dream job, barista. So at the end of 6 months, everybody, the sky's the limit. And people looked at me like I was insane. I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, this is what? It's a barista. That, I'm graduating from a 4-year program. I can't get my head around a barista position. To me, it was just gold dust.
Yeah. Amazing.
Would you mention again, and I don't know if Mary Alice or Rebecca are on the call, if they can, the entity that you talked about was
Well Done.
Well Done, and the swimming one as well.
Yep, I'll put the links in chat.
Oh, great.
And then again, I honestly don't usually put book sales, but I just put the link to Interning 101. So if you're interested in buying a book there, half of the proceeds will go to Well Done. And like I said, if you're looking for funding and an entertainment industry internship, please apply to Well Done. It's really an amazing group of people.
Wow. Uh, any last questions or ending thoughts, Emily? But thank you so much for doing this. So, listening to you describe your path, how many internships did you have? 10?
A lot, like 8 or 9. But again, like that sounds a little more kind of aggressive than it is. It's like I count like writing for a local music magazine, right? Like I didn't go anywhere. I wrote a couple pieces. They gave me tickets to the Boston Music Awards, but to me that counted, So it just adds up. And then again, the doing one, if you can do like 2 days one place, 3 days or 2 days the other, then you're maximizing your time.
So have you seen a resume with somebody who hasn't done an internship anywhere?
That's a really good question. No, I don't think so. Not someone that's pursuing entertainment or music by any means.
Okay. And so we talked about Mark Cuban valuing customer service experience. And do you now look for travel experience when you're looking at a resume?
Yeah, if there's any sort of study abroad, even if don't be stressed out about this, but it's like if you went to school someplace different than where you're from, right? That stands out to me. Being bilingual stands out to me because it just cranks your brain to think in a different way. I mean, I interned in the UK. We speak English, but I'm super fluent in some parts of the UK. I'm super fluent with currency. I have no problem with dialing internationally. By the time I was entry level at Madison House, I was teaching other people how to dial internationally, which I learned from interning in the UK.
Right. And yeah. So we all speak English. I had a situation in Norway. I think everybody in Norway speaks English, but I had a Norwegian band coming over for a tour. I'm like, yeah. And it just said in the agreement, if we don't get fed by the venue, there'll be $10 each for a buyout. Mm-hmm. And the Norwegian manager called me, how dare you? We cannot even buy McDonald's for this money. And because in Norway, a McDonald's is like $14. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You can buy 10 burgers for, what is happening? So that kind of, I think that enables you to stop and think like, well, hold on a minute, before I get into this ridiculous burger war, is there something that I don't know that maybe I can find out?
Agreed. I love it.
Well, hey, Rebecca, and I see Mary Alice, I bought you each a book while we were while you guys were typing.
Oh, I already sent it to them.
Oh, you sent? Well, we got more books then. Okay. We'll have a competition. So thank you so much for taking the time, Emily. It's really appreciated. And just so you know, we're using both of your books in the program, and actually starting. My first thing was to require 3 internships. Mm-hmm. Cannot be bullshit, because when you only have 1 internship, it's like, yeah, my uncle, no.
Well, and sorry to interrupt, it just limits your perspective. If you only know that one thing or that one bubble or that one world, then you don't know all this stuff or more of this stuff.
And you're not necessarily uncomfortable. I'm shy. You're not shy going over to your uncle's place to deal with whatever it is. You need to get the jitters before you go in for your first day, physically or virtually or whatever. But now, in addition to the 3 internships, we've also started the Internship 101 class, which is the theory, this kind of discussion, reading through your book, resume development, and interviewing techniques before we even get to that point.
Mm-hmm. So. Amazing, thank you. And let me add real quick, like I didn't set out to be an author. I felt like I was explaining a lot of basics semester after semester. And so I wrote what I called the intern manifesto for our management company, because I figured, okay, well, I'll put down some best practices and then that can help the students. And I had 2 great interns. One summer I said, if I turn this into like a 100-page how-to book for you and your classmates, would this be helpful? And it was like, yes. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I'm really glad it's resonating. And thank you so much, as always, for your support, Martin. It truly means the world to me.
Good deal. Well, thanks, Emily. We'll wrap this up, and please keep in touch. And we're going to see you in July, where we'll talk about how to build a sustainable music career.
That's right. And actually, one last thing: if anyone wants to help on I Voted, we have a really awesome team. It's obviously under horrible circumstances, but it does look like it'll be the biggest music festival of 2020. So that's what I'm going to go back to working on right now. Voter turnout.
Good deal. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you. Be well, everyone.